Autism spectrum disorder is a lifelong development condition. Spectrum refers to the wide range of challenges that people on the spectrum experience and to what extent they are affected. The three main characteristics of ASD is impaired communication skills, difficulties in social interaction, as well as restricted and repetitive patterns of behaviour. Approximately 1 in 100 people in Australia are diagnosed with ASD per year. From 2013, ASD has been diagnosed in terms of its severity and how much support an individual on the spectrum requires. Level 1 requires the least amount of support, and a person at this level may be able to speak full sentences but may have difficulty initiating and responding to social interactions. Level 2 requires substantial support. This could represent a person who speaks simple sentences, whose interaction is limited to specific special interests, and displays atypical nonverbal communication. Level 3 means a person on the spectrum requires a very high level of support. Someone at this level may only have a few words of coherent speech and will only approach others as a way of meeting their needs and wants and may only respond to extremely direct social approaches. There are a large number of stereotypes surrounding individuals who are considered to be on the autism spectrum. With this lack of understanding, it can be very challenging for people on the spectrum, not only because it is difficult to have their disorder diagnosed, but lessens the ability for them to create further support. These common misconceptions can also lead to social isolation and seclusion within society. This is why it is important to be able to classify and identify these common misconceptions and create more awareness of ASD. The first myth is that vaccines cause autism. This is a very common misconception due to a study in 1998 linking autism with vaccines. Since then, the study has been retracted. A study conducted by the Centre for Disease Control has determined there is no authentic evidence that there is a relation between autism spectrum disorder and vaccines. The second myth is that not everyone with autism is savant. Even though there are studies where there is a high occurrence of savant aptitudes with those who have ASD, only 10% of them actually reveal so. Other individuals have splinter skills, which are skills revealed in only 1 or 2 areas that are above average. However, there are some that don't exhibit any savant abilities either. Every individual on the autism spectrum are different and unique. The third myth is that environmental factors are a reason for autism. Genetics has been notoriously recognized for being one of the main causes of autism. Even said that parents whose first child has autism, there is a higher chance compared to the general population to have a second child with autism also. However, while environmental factors are not recognized to be a cause for autism, factors such as prenatal viral infection, zinc deficiency, maternal diabetes, stress, and toxins can link to the austerity of autism symptoms for some individuals. The final myth is that autism can be cured. ASD has no clear etiology or cure. Clinicians have noted that immediately after the parent accepts diagnosis of their child having ASD, they will set themselves up to anxiously go and search for a cure. That is why this is a very important misconception to be clarified. Public awareness of ASD has increased, and that is why negative misconceptions are slowly reducing. But improvement in diminishing these remaining misconceptions are needed in order to improve the knowledge of the general public on the broad spectrum of ASD.
The neurological basis of autism has been under research and has been able to draw considerable correlations between the abnormal function of brain regions and the social development of patients with ASD. Consider abnormalities in the following areas: the ventral temporal lobe, which has a role in facial recognition, the amygdala for fear and emotion, and the hippocampus for short-term memory and learning, among others. Now, consider abnormalities in these areas. It becomes harder to understand facial expressions, the ability to process fear and related emotions becomes impaired, and short-term memory and the way we learn also changes. This is autism. Depending on the area of your brain and the severity to which it is affected, you may fall somewhere along the spectrum. Besides direct abnormalities within lobes of the brain, multiple studies also reference the concept of underconnectivity within the brain. The theories suggest that the complex nature of social interaction requires the use of many regions of the brain. Underconnectivity could therefore render many regions of the brain vulnerable to disruption. For example, because of the wide range of cognitive, social, and perceptual difficulties faced by autistic persons, underconnectivity has been suggested as a possible cause for their varied inability to engage in normal social interaction. A 2009 report published in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders found the conduit for nerve fibers running between the corpus callosum and the cerebral cortex, shown in green in the image, are abnormally narrow in autistic brains and suggest that this smaller passageway could affect normal nerve transmission. However, research reveals inconsistent patterns of results across human studies, suggesting that connectivity problems may not be a universal feature of autism spectrum disorder.
DSM-5 outlines a set criteria of symptoms for autism, but uses a spectrum that draws distinctions to diagnose an individual's severity into two areas. The first one is social communication and interaction deficits. This involves how a child responds and interprets specific situations. The second one is restrictive or repetitive behaviors and can involve certain routines such as only catching a specific train in the morning. To diagnose individuals, behaviors must first be observed and recorded. It is preferable that these are done by those who are close with the child, such as parents, caretakers, or teachers. Once the deficits are identified, they are then given severity scores in each area on the autism spectrum by a clinician. It is important to note that each child will have a unique spectrum of deficits that will involve them displaying one or more of these deficits and vary in the deficit severity. With the advancement of technology, fMRIs have also shown to be effective in diagnosing autism, with its use resulting in 97% accuracy. In this image of an fMRI scan, the word hug was used as a cue word to detect the volume and area of activation within the brain associated with this word. The midline of the brain is called the posterior cingulate cortex and is responsible for processing emotion, learning, and memory. Individuals with autism suffer from a lack of social interaction, meaning when using the cue word hug, there was a limited activation within the posterior cingulate cortex. Treatment for autism are preventative in nature or involves managing the effects of autism. There is no known cure that will entirely remove autism from an individual. Therefore, treatment or intervention techniques aim to improve quality of life and psychological functioning. For treatment to be effective, it requires an individualized or tailored intervention program in accordance with the characteristics of the subject's severity and symptoms of deficits. This heavily relies on an accurate diagnosis by a clinician.
The prevalence of autism spectrum disorder is increasing. As you can see in the graph, between 2012 and 2015, there was a 42.1% increase. There are several reasons for the steep incline in diagnoses, including improved awareness, expansion of diagnostic criteria, better diagnostic tools, and improved reporting.
Management techniques typically involve behavioral, communicational, or educational programs. This could involve early intensive behavioral intervention, speech and language therapy, the picture exchange communication system, and occupational therapy that might use the aid of animals such as horses or dogs. Early intervention is vital to maximize the effect of autism treatment, as it has been shown to lead to improved outcomes for children suffering from autism. This includes higher intelligence, increased social communication skills, and daily living skills. The longer a child goes without help leads to further compounding of the problem. An effective management program is also accompanied by notable improvements in neuroactivity and the brain's functional connectivity. A 10-week reading intervention on children with ASD observed increased brain activation of the Broca's area, which is associated with language processing. This increase in brain activation in the Broca's area also correlated with the amount of improvement in reading comprehension for the children tested.
It is important to note that over the past few years that knowledge of the neurological basis of ASD has seen large improvements. However, ASD is not yet fully understood. With that said, further research in ASDs is looking in the areas of preclinical models, experimental therapy, early identification and intervention, neurotechnologies, and the needs of adults with ASD. With this further research, more support and knowledge can become available to those who have ASD.